I'm Pam. Welcome to my video tutorial. In this video tutorial, we are going to learn how to sew a small zipper pouch. This is a fun beginner project, but you don't have to be a beginner to sew these small zipper pouches. However, we are going to cover a few techniques that make this an excellent learning video. First of all, we are going to learn how to sew two different pieces of fabric together. As you'll notice, this pouch has a different fabric on the bottom than it does on the top. I also used some fusible fleece in this project to make it a little bit more stable because I was using two different weights of fabric. So I added some stitching to the top of the fabric, also known as quilting. So we'll do a little bit of quilting or top stitching along this project. And we will also, you'll notice that this pouch is fully lined, so we'll learn how to put a lining in this pouch. Of course, we're going to learn how to install the zipper, and we're going to learn how to put the zipper tabs on each end of the zipper. In this pouch, I use some zipper that is known as by the yard. You can literally purchase this zipper by the yard, trim it down to the size that you need, and then insert your zipper pull. So we'll cover all that in this tutorial. This is a fun little project that is great for beginners because it uses a small amount of product and it's inexpensive. It really allows you to hone your sewing skills and develop those, and before you know it, you'll be making these in all different sizes and shapes. But the purpose of this tutorial is to get you familiar with installing a zipper, and we're going to do exactly that. I'll be covering some of my favorite tips and techniques for getting these to turn out perfectly every time, and I will walk you through every step. So let's do this together.
First, let's take a look at the supplies that you will need. I will leave the exact dimensions of the cut fabrics below in the description. So you will need fabric for the outside of your bag, 2 pieces, one for the bottom, one for the top, 2 pieces of fabric for your lining, 2 pieces of fabric for the tabs for your zipper, a 7-inch zipper, and you will need 2 pieces of cut fabric for your lining. You'll also need coordinating thread, your ironing board, rotary cutter, acrylic ruler, and a self-healing mat, as well as a pair of scissors all come in handy. Now the first thing that you're going to do is to take the tabs for the zipper and press it in half, and then take the edges and fold them towards the fold and then press it again. You will do that with both tab pieces for the zipper. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the top and the bottom of the front and the back of our bags together. So we will clip those in place, and then we will stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance right along the long edge. I'm going to trim off any threads, and then I will repeat that with the back of the zipper pouch, attaching the top to the bottom using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I just kind of finger press the fabric. And now I'm going to top stitch. I'm going to change the length of my stitch to 4.0, and I am going to top stitch along both the front and the back pieces. Right along that top fabric, just maybe 1/4 inch away from the seam, really close. 1/8 to 1/4 inch away, I'm going to top stitch using a 4.0 millimeter stitch length. Okay, now I'm going to apply the fusible fleece to the back of my pouch, to the front and the back 2 pieces. I usually like to lay a cloth over top of that when I apply my fusible fleece so that it doesn't stick to my iron. Okay, once I have the fusible fleece ironed onto both the front and the back of my zipper pouches, I'm ready to take it back to my sewing machine. And now I'm going to do some top stitching or some quilting on the top of the fabric just to secure the fleece to the fabric. I know I already ironed it on, but I also like the look of this. So this is kind of a quilting technique that we're going to use on this little zipper pouch. So now I'm just measuring the distance and getting that bar right where I want it so I can stitch even width for these rows of stitches that I'm doing. And if you don't have a quilting guide bar for your sewing machine, you can use the marks on your needle plate. You can eyeball it. You can use a marking pen and a ruler. But it's really not important for this project. I just like the look of it, and it adds a little bit more stability to the pouch. So I'm repeating that with the back panel of the zipper pouch as well. Okay, now that I'm done with that, I'm going to move on to the zipper. I'm going to attach the zipper tabs to the ends of my zipper. And as you can see, I just open up the fold on the fabric that we pressed earlier, and I'm going to insert the end of my zipper and kind of center it between the fold. And you can pin this in place if you want, or use clips, but I find it such a small piece that I can just kind of hold it with my fingers. And then I'm just going to stitch using a regular stitch length, 2.4, whatever you like to use, straight across the end of that to secure the tabs to the zipper. And once I do this end, I will go and do the other end of the zipper. Now, I forgot to talk to you about preparing the zipper. This pattern calls for a 7-inch zipper. So if you're using a regular polyester zipper, you are going to measure from the top of the zipper, where the zipper stop is at the top, all the way down 7 inches, and that will be where you will trim off that zipper and then attach these zipper tabs. What I'm using here is Zipper by the Yard. You literally can purchase this zipper and by the yard, however many yards of different colors and styles that you want. And what's really nice about it is it has a really wide zipper tape. The fabric on the left and the right of the zipper teeth, that is the zipper tape, and it just comes in so handy for projects like these pouches and bags and purses and handbags and things like that that you may want to sew in the future. So just something to keep in mind, that this Zipper by the Yard, specifically for bags, has a wider strip of fabric down each side of the zipper, and it makes it so much nicer and easier for installing it in bags, zipper pouches, things like that. And that is what I'm using here. But you can use a polyester zipper too. Okay, so we have the tabs all sewn onto the end of the zipper. Now we're ready to put our pieces together. I'm going to take one of the exterior pieces, and then I'm going to center my zipper face down on top of that exterior piece. And I will pin or clip that in place. I like to use the Wonder Clips. Now make sure the ends are within your seam allowance, the ends of the zipper. So the beginning and the end of the zipper where you sewed on the tabs, that needs to be inside your seam allowance so that you're not sewing it when you go to stitch this together. So I have my exterior fabric face up, my zipper face down, and my lining fabric face down, and all pinned or clipped together. And then I'm ready to sew that. I'm going to switch out to my zipper foot because it makes it easier for attaching zippers to fabric, especially if you're using the polyester zippers. Not really necessary for this zipper, but because I'm using such a small seam allowance, I want to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to move the position of my needle on my sewing machine all the way to the left, and I'm going to stitch close to the zipper teeth, but not on the zipper teeth. And I'm just going to back stitch to secure my stitching at the beginning and the end, and I'm just going to stitch straight down. And when I get close to the zipper, I'm going to stop, raise my zipper foot, and I'm going to move the zipper out of the way, the zipper pull out of the way, as you can see here. There you go. I just lay everything back down, get everything lined back up, and I will finish my stitching. I'll stitch down to the end and then do a little reverse stitch to kind of secure that in place. So there you have the exterior fabric, the lining fabric, and the zipper all sewn together. Now at this point you can take it over to your ironing board and press that down nice and flat with your iron, and you could do a little bit of top stitching there by the zipper on the fabric to keep the lining and the fabric away from your zipper. Now we're going to attach it to the back of the zipper pouch. So I lay the exterior fabric face up. I will place the zipper right sides together, wrong side up onto that, kind of pin or clip it in place. Then I will take my other piece of lining fabric and lay it down on top of that face down. So I'm just lining up the edges, repinning this to include the lining, and I'm going to start stitching. Now you may have noticed that I moved my zipper pull all the way away from, closer to me and away from my sewing machine needle. And when I get close to that, I'm going to again stop stitching, raise my presser foot, and move my zipper pull out of the way, and then continue stitching. Yep, so I'm going to stop, move that zipper out of the way, and continue stitching. Again, I will back stitch a little bit to reinforce those stitches. Okay, we have all those pieces stitched together. Now we're going to line up right sides together the lining pieces, and I'm going to use my clips to clip that all together. You can use pins as well. I will line up the seams where my zipper, where the front and the back and the lining pieces all attach. I will line those up. Again, I'm going to line up the lining pieces together and the exterior fabric pieces together and clip all of that in place. And I will push the zipper tab towards the lining. Here I have it already stitched because I forgot to video that part, but I stitched all the way around, leaving a 3-inch opening in the bottom of the lining piece. And then what I did was to clip my corners. You can see I stitched all the way around, clipped my corners when I was done, and I left an opening in the bottom of the lining so that I could turn this inside out. I also made sure my zipper was open before I stitched all this together. I should have mentioned that. Make sure your zipper is open before you stitch this part of it. You're stitching the lining pieces and the exterior pieces together because you're going to need that opening in the zipper to turn your pouch right side out. So I'm turning it inside out now through that opening in the lining. And now I need to turn the whole pouch through there. And you see, if I didn't have my zipper open, we'd have a problem at this point, and I'd have to finagle trying to get that zipper open so I could finish turning it right side out. So just turn it right side out, kind of muscle it, being careful not to, pull your stitches out or anything. And because I used heavier duck cloth in the bottom of this, it's a little stiffer. And then I like to take a turning tool. I have my bone folder that I like to use. I've just inserted through the opening in the lining, and it'll get right down there in those corners, and it'll push those corners out so they're really nice. And that is also the reason we clipped those corners before we turned it in right side out, so that we wouldn't have all that bulk in the corners and we could get them as square as we want them. The fabric itself that I'm using is a canvas duck cloth kind of fabric, so it's already bulky, but I'm getting it all pushed out, kind of finger pressing it. And then I'll do the same for the corners where the zipper tabs are up by the zippers, and make sure that's all nice and out. And then I will line up the lining, the bottom of the lining where I have the opening. I'll just kind of finger press that so the seam allowance is inside, all tucked inside, and then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and use a very narrow stitch to close up that opening. You could also do a ladder stitch or an invisible stitch or something by hand if you wanted to, but I usually use my sewing machine. So once you have that ready, take it over to the sewing machine and sew that lining closed. Like I said, I use probably less than 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just as close to the edge as I can, a nice narrow, short stitch length, and just stitch that opening closed. A little back stitch to secure my stitches, trim the threads. And then I will insert the lining into the pouch, make sure everything is just the way I want it. All the corners and the zipper tab is nice and pushed out. May have to get my tool to push that out a little further. Make sure the fabric is out of the way by the zipper. And then I will take it over to my sewing machine or my ironing board and my iron and just give it a real good pressing one more time. But there is the finished zipper pouch. I think it turned out just lovely. It's the perfect size for holding your bank card, driver's license, and just a few things. You know, I use mine actually instead of a wallet. It's just so handy. So there you can see some of the top stitching or quilting that I did on it. You can see the nice zipper, the installation that we did. And the fabric is just adorable. I purchased it from Joann's. So here's a closer look at the small zipper pouch. And I just love that zipper. I use it in so many projects. It's just adds a nice colorful touch. It's sturdy. It's just fun to work with. And it makes me happy. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. If you found it helpful, be sure to like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll be notified when there are new videos made available. And please come visit me over on Hooked on Sewing and sign up for my newsletter. You'll find lots of sewing tutorials and patterns and tips on the Hooked on Sewing. And by subscribing to my newsletter, you'll be notified when I have new projects ready to share.
So, wasn't that a fun, easy project? And can you see how it is such a great skill builder? I hope so. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please leave them in the comments below. I would love it if you would come over to Hooked on Sewing and subscribe to my newsletter. Then you'll have sewing tips, tutorials, and patterns delivered straight to your inbox that you can utilize right away. But also, if this video was helpful to you, be sure to like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll be notified when new videos are made available just like this one. And thank you again for watching my sewing tutorial on how to sew a small lined zipper pouch. I hope it was helpful to you. Thank you.